Champagne Friday, and I brought my sidekick, B-star, it's called, Björnstierne Antonson, and is... nej, Antonsen. Ska du köra om den eller?
Vi kör
från början, okej. Ska du? Ja, men jag kör.
Eller så kan jag köra en liten...
Ja, du kör. Ja, börja.
So guys, Friday, and Rika called me and said, it's Friday, what are you doing? We have to do some Champagne Friday. And here we are at Casa Juhlin with something spectacular in the glass, right?
Exactly. And you need to share this kind of stuff. You can't just sit with a cameraman behind and it's not tasting them. So why did I pick these two? Because it was my choice that I wanted to show a little bit this and have a discussion around it. It's Anselm Selosse, Jacques Selosse, the house. The two cheapest of the very expensive and rare champagnes. Initial and V.O, version original. What's the difference? What's the difference in quality, in style, and in the glass? That was my point of view. The reason is that I've seen a change where it was a big step in quality between these two, and they are more similar today. I would never have failed in blind tastings when I came to a place and say, oh, it's Initial or it's Substance or etc. But sometimes VO is like a Substance. Sometimes Initial is like a VO. There are reasons for this, and it's impossible to have a full story because Anselm is so secret.
That's a whole TV series and a couple of books.
Yeah, he's so special, he's so wonderful, and he's the king now of all the growers. A very interesting thing, just to put it into perspective, is that my relationship to Anselm is that when I met him the first time, it was just 1 year after he started his work with the new barrels, etc. It was in 1987. I started with champagne 1 year earlier.
Almost when the Substance started.
Yeah,
which was the Solera and then Origin and now the Substance. Ah, cool.
So I tasted it 1 year old from the barrel, and he said, I will become a genius or called a fool, an idiot. And we know the result today. But there are people who dislike his wines.
Very much, yeah.
They are very strong in personality. You have a phalanx with people who are, we need to, how can they like Selosse? I was in Champagne last week. I was sitting with some very famous winemakers and blind tasting disciples of Selosse. And they said, all of them were like, Selosse has achieved something extraordinary. His wines are so special. They are beautiful in many ways, and he's changed champagne in many ways. But we prefer, these people I met said, we prefer the disciples because they are more something in between the Selosse style and the champagne houses, where you have a hint of all this gorgeous, enormous things that you find.
The voluptuous expressions of those
exactly.
Things,
yeah. The major criticism is oxidation. I hate too much oxidation. I hate Madeirized champagne. I hate sherry notes in champagne, but I love Selosse. So I think for me there is no doubt this is the king. And one thing that really showcases that is to take the two simplest wines, the Initial and VO, and still they are like a bit prestigious from others in terms of volume and
quality,
intensity for sure. So background wise, he used to make, that's what he's told me, you never know exactly if it's true or not, but the concept was that Initial was released earlier, like any non-vintage. Major reason was that because he took it only from Avis, and normally you take all the best from the mid-slope, or the steepest parts of Avis, but he liked the blend of where the clay has been raining down.
Oh yeah.
Sliding
So the richness
down.
of the downslope, so to say.
Exactly.
All right.
I'm thinking in Swedish,
Yeah.
but you saw that. In combination with the chalks directly. So it was almost a 50-50 blend from the richness that you obtain there. It will not keep as long as the mid slopes.
Right.
But if you consume them within 3-4 years, something like that, you will have more pear aromas, more flowery notes, and slightly more richness from those, which for early consumption. So that was the concept. We kept that, and still that is the base for this. It's majority of Avis. It is in the VO, nothing from the clayey slopes. It's only the mid slopes, and here it's a combination. But the change, why I got so puzzled about the closeness in quality, is probably due to the fact that it's also Aucher and Cremant.
There we go.
Because of his success,
Right.
he could buy other lands. Everybody wanted to sell directly to him, and he, all these vineyard wines that
Exactly, we see the success with the 6 different styles of vineyard designated wines. Okay.
Exactly.
So he has plots in other villages as well.
So now we taste.
Absolutely.
We have. There's also another thing. In the VO, it's always 2 years more times on his lease.
Yeah.
So you have more richness, more depth before disgorgement, and disgorgement dates are about the same. But here we have 13 based on the VO and 15 based on the Initial. So start with Initial.
Yeah. The color is crazy. Huh?
Yeah.
It's so golden.
So
fantastic.
golden.
And this is entry level.
Entry level, and recently disgorged half a year ago. And directly you see that it's really something. It's gold, liquid gold. Selosse. You can't go wrong there, but you can definitely.
The DNA is there.
The DNA is there for sure.
And it's very hard if someone says, okay, what is the typicity of the aromas of the Selosse? Because for us and people who taste it a lot, it's very specific. It's so big. So I can understand some producers, traditional producers, that really didn't understand this, and still today that really don't like this style. Call it oxidative. I wouldn't say that it's oxidative. Of course, it's matured in barrel and those kind of things, but it's an aromatic profile that is so completely different than anything else.
And time is too short in this, but in the book and in everything that we write on the Champagne Club, you get the explanation. But to make it very, very short, one good story is that when I came to his house and I smelled the aromas in the air in a vinification center, there was something very special which you found in the Champagnes as well. And then he moved to the more fancy place, the old Bricot place where Le ABC is today. And I was a little bit afraid when he moved. Even
Not a little bit. He actually took Anselm to the side and you spoke about it.
Yeah, exactly.
I was with you on that specific day. It was quite an experience to see that discussion, because you have a really good friendship. You've known each other for quite some time, and he really respects your opinions and often wants your opinion on certain things. And you are also a person that need to say what's on your heart, on your chest. And this was quite interesting when you had these concerns about the move into the different cellar.
Because I was so convinced that the mushrooms on the walls and the environment was going through the barrels into the champagne, into the wine, into the champagne later on. And I said, Anselm, you might have done a mistake, but you were very lucky because you got the same smell in here.
The fungus, yeah.
A couple of 100 meters away from the cellar that you had, and that's very rare. And then he was laughing and he said, no, Richard, it took me 2 years. I brought down everything from the walls and transported, planted to have exactly the same environment. So the concern was, it was something that very obvious for him.
Right.
And he was right, because you still have it. And that's part of the difference from all the others, the disciples. And I will also say, with the disciples, there's one note which was impossible to make, but you have a couple of guys finding it now, is the sesame note, which is only in Selosse.
Almost like the sesame oil.
Sesame oil.
The black, yeah.
Ulysse Collin.
Exactly.
Prévost. And now Chaton Taillet as well. And one more, Marguet, for his singing vineyard in Ambonnet. So suddenly, poof, it's there. It's a disciple who found part of the secret recipe. Coming back to these two, because I tasted a little bit step by step. Starting with that note, I would say in these two bottles, in this version that we have here with the 15 base for the initial, the sesame note is not that obvious, but it is in the VO, which is a signature note that, for me, I go crazy directly. And the first time I found it was in the 1986 vintage, which was the base for the Solera, for the Substance. And I thought it was only possible in that year, but it's other things that makes it.
It's almost like we can talk about a wine cellar terroir in a way, because we've spoken about it when we visited some of the crayères, and some wines are extremely inflected by storage in the crayère cellars. So good crayère. And here we can also talk about that the specific cellar has their own terroir expression, and especially not only with the crown cap and the oxygen going into the wine, but also now when we're talking about wines made in barrels, which have that exchange from.
I can extend it to. I've tasted a couple of times. I found wines that I don't know exactly what it is, but I can say from which cellar it's been stored, when it's stored a long time. So it's not that strange. And if you have a very strong influence with open barrels, of course there are more aromatics that creeps into the wine. But going back here, it's not really 100% perfection in trying to see the pure differences, because we have 15 in the left glass and 13 in the other glass. 13 is more precise, more refined. 15 is a richer wine, which is, of course, something which is cool that you can get that in the entry level, as you say. But for me, there is a big difference today in these two glasses, with the elegance, with this extra precision that you find, and with the sesame notes on top of all the most obvious things. It's very spicy, it's very chocolatey, it's a lot of tar, it's a lot of olive, and dark notes in both of them. But, so this time is worth the difference in price. There.
Anyway, we just make a little short entry here at the end. We could be talking about these wines and the wines of Selosse for quite some time. So if you want a little bit more footage, actually in this guy's Masterclass, we have a full episode with a visit at the cellars of Anselm. It's about 15-20 minutes with the Gorgemont à la volée and other cool stuff. So check that out. Cheers.
Cheers.
Friday.
Friday.